down at Howard, but African American Studies does not exist. In fact, the only PhD program in African American Studies was at Temple University that somehow got shifted when they got frightened of an Afrocentric emphasis coming from Alethea Asante, and so they shifted him out and shifted someone else in, and now it's not even there anymore. So why doesn't Atlanta University have it? Why doesn't Howard have it? Why don't even some of the undergraduate schools begin to provide graduate training or undergraduate training in it? They can't do it because they have to go to the Ford Foundation, the Carnegie Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, the federal government to get whatever they have. And we sit around arrogantly talking about, I'm at my university. You ain't got no damn university. So, please hear me well. I may sound like I'm angry at you, but I'm not. My intention is for us to wake up and understand that we must save ourselves. My demand is very simple compared to other people. People are preparing for war to protect their identity. What is this whole protest in Israel and between Israel and the Middle East and Palestine? That is a protest of people who see the definition of themselves as a matter of life and death. People your age are preparing to go to war to preserve Israel as their homeland. People are already at the ages of 14, 15 years old, soldiers, warriors fighting on the battlefront to preserve their homeland. What is a homeland? It's a way of defining and controlling your own definition of you. The privilege to be yourself. The privilege to ensure the future of your children. The privilege to somehow define the ideas of who you are. And people are willing to give their lives for that. So for you to be willing to stand up and simply defend yourself against those who would take that from you is a very minor request to make for people who somehow are facing the kind of absolutely extinction that we will be unless we begin to take responsibility for our lives. Now, developing our power. Number one, the way that you begin to develop, and we're talking about human power. This ain't a black thing by itself. This is the way we gain access to the power that is ours that we somehow do not have because of our experience by being black in the Western world. In fact, by being black in Africa. The process of colonialism, the process of slavery. Doesn't matter whether you came from Trinidad and Tobago and from Barbados or from Nigeria or from Ghana. The bottom line is that all of those places have been under the same subjugation. For the last 500 years, African people have been knocked out of their minds. And we must begin to fight to restore those minds. This is not something, and I keep emphasizing this because I'm sick and tired of being misquoted by both Negroes and white people that when I affirm who I am, I'm attacking someone else. I don't have to attack you to love me. I just happen to love black. Some of my best friends aren't white. One or two that I might have. But the idea is that I can still love white people or red people or any other green people if you got any. The bottom line is that my first concern is to love this black, kinky head, the bald headed or whatever, big nose, thick lipped man that happens to be me. And when I say me, I mean you, my family. Those who I recognize as being in that family. I can't love anybody else until I love us. Studying ourselves is the first step. If you don't know who you are, then there's no way in the world for you to defend or even operate in your own self-interest. Why do you think Pitt exists? Why do you think Penn State exists? Why do you think the University of Penn? Why do you think Harvard, Yale, Princeton exist? These places exist because there's a recognition among civilized European American people that we must build institutions committed to the study and the advancement of who we are. That's where the curriculum comes from. It is computer science to advance European American society. It is history to understand the history of Europeans and its relationship to the rest of the world, but European history is in the center. Why do you think they have art, drama, theater? Those are ways to somehow put forth the European hegemony to let the world know their conception of art, their understanding of theater, their mastery of literature. Why do you think that there's a language department? The language departments don't have Swahili, don't have Yoruba, don't have Igbo, don't have the Akan languages. The language department has French and Spanish, and want you to polyglot a little Francais, a little Dutch, and do a little Russian even, Czechoslovakia. Anything that somehow does that, and when they in fact become pushed by the rise of other people, then they start teaching Japanese. Then they start teaching Chinese. When they begin to find that their centrality becomes challenged by people who are defining themselves and operating in their own self-interest, then the curriculum begins to expand. But before that time, the curriculum is rooted in their understanding of themselves. They teach classical Greek and they teach classical Latin. But they don't teach the classical Kemetic language, which was the father and mother language of both of them. They will somehow tell you about Egypt in the Middle East, but they won't tell you that somehow Greek came into its own expression by building on the so-called metanetra that came out of the Kemetic land. Because Kemet is the black land. Because Egypt is not in the Middle East, I repeat. Egypt is not in the Middle East, I repeat. Egypt is in where? Always has been, always will be. And I don't care what the geographers might say by trying to cut off that part of the world and suspend it in directional space. The bottom line is that is their distortion.
Yes, sir.
And the distortion is intended to somehow separate the land that served as the origin of civilized and intellectual life on this planet to someplace else other than Africa where it came from. So the idea is that we must do for us what other people do for them. That doesn't mean we shouldn't study Greek Hellenistic periods. That doesn't mean we shouldn't know about the Roman Empire. Doesn't mean we shouldn't know about World War I, II, and all the rest of them. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to understand what they're saying when they're polygloting Francais. It doesn't mean that somehow we should not be aware of the contributions of the recent comers to civilization who are Europeans and what they've done. That does not mean that we should understand that. The idea is that we must understand that within our context. Why? Because if you don't know that you are a participant in a process, you think you're borrowing something that belongs to somebody else. If you don't see yourself as a part of the intellectual development of scholars, of intellectual development of thinkers, of the intellectual development of scientists, the intellectual development of mathematicians, if you don't understand that your thinking is served as the fundamental seeds of the development of theology on this planet, you'll be begging somebody else to save you.
Yes, sir.
You believe that someone else has the answers to even not only your life on this planet, but in the world to come. And so we as former slaves walk around willingly teaching our children to bow down and worship a blonde-haired, blue-eyed concept of God of the universe, and therefore condemn ourselves to spiritual destruction by not being able to identify ourselves with the God of the universe. So if God looks like the same man who oppresses you, you ain't got no God to save you. The idea is that this is a process. So the same way that you believe Columbus discovered America, and that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, and you believe that Santa Claus likes you too, and then you believe that the God of the universe looks like the same man who throws you in prison, kicks you and racially profiles you, and kicks your butt even today.
That's right.
Now, let's just turn it around if you think I'm crazy. In fact, why don't you make this a dissertation project? Why don't you begin to go around to white churches and put in the face of a black Messiah? Put him on the cross, a brother hanging there, dreadlocks, black and dead on the cross, and say, okay, if God doesn't come in any color, if it doesn't matter, let us suggest that you begin to have this in front of your 98% white congregation. I want your children to come to Sunday school and Bible study, and I want them to look at the King Felder African American Heritage Bible. And I want them to show all of these people in the Old Testament as being African people. I want them to see Ruth as a black Ruth, Esther as a black Esther. I want them to see Hail Mary, black Philip. I want them to see all the disciples as brothers sitting around the table, getting ready to get down on some food. I want you to have the Holy Communion set up, and I don't want you to somehow simply have a red head here and an organ there and blue eyes there. I want you to have a black brother, a brown brother. You can even have like your real mulatto brother, but make sure he's a brother. And then see how many of them will continue to come to church. See how long you have white folks bringing their children to bow down and say, Hail Mary, full of grace, black woman, God is with thee. They ain't gonna do it. Oh, what is that man talking about? It's probably because he's one of those Muslims and he's talking about my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I ain't talking about your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I'm trying to get you back to him. I'm trying to get you back to him because you're running away from him, not understanding that your Lord Jesus Christ is right inside you right now. But you can't get to it. If someone has blinded you to understand, go study who you are. Understand that we are not Americans out of the generosity of America. What we have been able to acquire in this place is because of the brilliance, the determination, and the protest spirit of African people.
Yes.
Yeah, we caught hell for a long time. Yeah, psychologically, we got molded into passively, many of us passively accepting our position. But there was still enough spirit of defiance that kept on raising up a Nat Turner.
That's right.
Yes.
Raised up a Harriet Tubman. Raised up a Denmark Beaton. Raised up a Marcus Garvey. Raised up an Elijah Muhammad. Raised up all those people who continue to challenge the status quo. Raised up a Martin Luther King Jr. These people were raised out of a protest spirit that was not given to us by America.
Right.
No.
We took America. We took the part that we have of America, and even today they don't want you in it.
All right.
You understand that? I mean, like, what is happening in Washington, D.C. with the programs for education? Even though they didn't put a black face over it. The objective is to somehow do away with public education because they believe that we already got too much. Now, we don't have much at all. We got none about ourselves. But with the little bit we have, stirred in with this protest spirit, we have been able to do things you never would have imagined.
Yes, sir.
Do you realize that 30 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, Carter G. Woodson and W.B. Du Bois had PhDs from Harvard. Now, they didn't grow up on plantations, but I'm talking about a nation that had a slave system in place. And these brothers were so awesome that they were able to have a PhD from the peak of European American education 30 years after slavery was outlawed. That's awesome. That is awesome. Now, you want to talk about some SAT scores and some GRE scores and some intelligence possibilities and where we fall on the particular bell curve is laid out to somehow determine intellectual capabilities and the genetic abilities of certain people to have certain type of cognitive capacities for certain cognitions and others not to have those things. Go talk to that. Go explain to me how you walk off a plantation one day and 2 days later have a PhD. You understand? Look, you can't explain one of the graduates of Pitt by any theory of psychological or cognitive functioning that exists in European American thought. You can't explain it. You can't explain why we are where we are. Still a long ways to go. I mean, we aren't finished at all.
All right.
But there is no explanation for how we got here by using ordinary economic theory.
That's right.
You can't use social theory. You can't use organizational concepts. You can't use anything that exists in Western science, Western theology, or Western philosophy to explain how we got here.
That's right.
It ain't about Marxism. It ain't about any of the things that are there. It's about an understanding of another kind of mind and spirit that we don't even appreciate.
Right.
We don't even understand what has been driving us. But that's what we need to study. Now, do you need to leave Pitt? No, indeed. Stay here and spy like hell. Learn whatever they are teaching, because clearly they are running a material world at this point. They have a dimension of reality that they are in control of. And we are under their domination until we wake up in our consciousness. So as long as we are dominated by their intellect, until we can awaken our consciousness, then we have to understand what they are doing. You see, let's be sensible about this. If you get hungry, you can't even go to a black store to buy food. There are no imports of like canned goods or frozen goods from any place in the world. So you can get mad if you want to, but if these white folks decide to stop letting you go into Safeway, you're going to be a hungry brother. You understand? I mean, that's just real. Now, we can be as vehement and as militant as we want to. I know, white folks listen. That's all cool. But when you get hungry, you better go find you someplace to eat. When you get sick, you don't have one single hospital you control. You got a couple of doctors, and only one out of those two has any consciousness he's even black. He wants to pay his car payments. He wants his insurance payment. And the idea is that you can't depend on him to look out for you before he will look out for the white person who has insurance. Simple as that. I mean, I ain't putting him down. We all been miseducated. But I want to argue with you that if we could use our skills to our own advancement, then we wouldn't have to have those concerns. But like, you know, if you just militant and got nothing but an ideology, and ain't got no access to food and health and even burial grounds, then what you doing, fool? You understand? I don't need your rhetoric without some substance. You see?
Thank you.
Oh, y'all will get married. We must understand a dual responsibility. You need a roof over your head. It gets cold in Pittsburgh. If you don't have some heat, your behind will freeze. Your children will freeze. You can have all kinds of pictures on the wall. You can have red, black, and green all through the bathrooms and every place else. But your butt will be cold if you don't have access to some type of heat and care. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm not putting it down. I'm saying what I'm trying to do is give a balanced perception. I'm saying we need to understand how to master what is, while simultaneously drawing upon the power in us that helps us to advance that and utilize that for our own well-being. And if you don't have resources to do that, then you had better chill out until you can heat up. And the challenge is to heat up our minds. So the study piece, you know, we need to understand our connection to Kenya. We need to understand our connection to Africa. Brothers over here went with me to Ghana a couple of years ago. We go every year, Wade Nobles and I, because we as psychologists, Dr. Wade Nobles, and even the Association of Black Psychologists met in Ghana last year, because we understand that our foundation is in the African continent, within the indigenous culture of Africa. Not what the missionaries did, not what the colonial powers did, but in the reality of the life that still lives in the African people is more intact because it hasn't been so contaminated by being uprooted. We were uprooted. So what we've had to do is to somehow restore it, recreate it in an alien environment. That's cool. I mean, everything from fashions to rituals to religious practices to naming ceremonies, all those things are good, but they're recreations. But the authentic form has been able to be sustained in parts of the African continent. When you go there, what they've not been able to destroy is the spirit.
All right.
Now you see, spirit doesn't come in clothes or hairdos or makeup. Spirit is a thing that is invisible, that passes through from the inside. It's something that you feel. You can't describe it. You feel it. So when we go back to Africa, this part of our study of ourselves, we have to go back through the way we came out. So we go to Cape Coast, we go to Kamasi, go to Cape Coast, go to Elmina, go through the slave dungeons.
Yes.
And we walk through the places where our people bled and died and were treated like animals and set in their own urine, and the women were raped and murdered right there in that very place that still stands. And nobody has to tell you about slavery. You feel it.
Yes, sir.
You begin to understand why the Jews have struggled to make sure that you don't desecrate Auschwitz. They don't let anybody go to Auschwitz. Auschwitz is where the concentration camps were. They don't somehow let you desecrate that memory, because they know that at Auschwitz is the standing monument to the destruction of the Jewish people wholesale. Are they trying to pretend it didn't happen? Hell no. They won't forget and won't let you forget, because they know that if you forget, it can happen again.
That's right.
So we go back through that place where we got cut off. And that is what civilized people do. And then we begin to interact with the people of God. And we talk to the cultural keepers, the griots of God. We begin to somehow interact with the spirit of the culture of God. And we listen to the drums, and we move with the people, and we watch the babies, and we watch the colors, and we understand something about who we are, and understand that we are not deviant white people. We are not neurotics with Oedipus complexes. We are not somehow perverts caught up in a period of our own personal individual development, suffering from a dissociation with other human beings, because we have come to believe that ego and separation makes us who we are, rather than the integration of ourselves with other selves and forming a collective consciousness that transcends the separateness of one way of thinking. We don't somehow operate with the assumptions of the Europeans, who assume that spirit is something that one chooses to have or not have. We go with the African way to understand that spirit is the essence of all being, and even when you try to get away from it, you end up bumping into it again, because soul and spirit is the foundation of the consciousness of the human being. Right? This is who we are. So it isn't somehow an option, if there's an option to choose what developmental process you want to work with, whether you want to be Christian or Muslim or Hebrew or Rastafari. The idea is that you can choose your system of spiritual development. What is built into the African assumption is that spirit is given. It is given. And Africans understand spirit and spirituality as the substance of all things. That is the thing that is left out of Western physics. That's what's left out of Western religion. That's what's left out of Western philosophy. That's what's left out of Western psychology. And I don't care which form of it you take, you are going to leave out your soul if you accept that as the definition of who you are. If you believe that your libido and your ability to have oral stimulation at the age of 1 month and 1 day, and anal fixations like a few months later, and then some other kind of Oedipus conflict based upon masturbatory fantasies about the possibility of taking your mother from your father and then getting castrated back in retaliation, and young girls believing that somehow they came into their quote-unquote inferior feminine position because they were castrated, therefore they suffer from penis envy, because in order to have a penis, you therefore can begin to acquire the male-dominant capabilities, and therefore you can be like the superior human being who's a male. If you begin to believe that the only way you can get your needs satisfied is to go up some type of hierarchy of needs that somehow have been superimposed on who you are, rather than a spirit that is evolving towards greater enhancement of what it is. If you begin to believe that somehow the rewards that you're able to get for a certain kind of behavior determines what that behavior is going to be, and you are just like a rat, or you're just like a cat, or you're just like a dog, and your punishment or your reward determines what your behavior is going to be. If you believe that's what it is, you lose your soul. Ourselves, we need to understand who we are. Boy, time is going fast. Let me finish this up. Now, once we've developed our power, in this process of developing our power, we begin with the studying ourselves, and then we have to remember ourselves. One of the things that every culture has built into it, and they call it different things, is a ritualistic, continuous memory of the ancestors. Now, don't be tripping. Okay, we ain't talking about praising dead people. We ain't talking about having church and seeing dead relatives as being your God. We're talking about that. We're talking about how every people on the planet understands that they have no present if they have no memory of their past. You see, we are the products of Benjamin Banneker. We are the products of Booker T. We are the products of even those people in our past who we may not like 100%. But we are the products of their determination to keep on living. So we can't deny them. If we deny them, we deny our presence here. Because you see, understand, none of us was supposed to be here. Right. Don't you understand that? You see, the American plan, as it was laid out in its founding documents, was to dehumanize us, and we were to be a permanent labor class. Don't take my word for it. I ain't tripping. Go read the Constitution. Go read their version of their history. Go read what they did to protest against your being involved in the human family. Go look at the distortions that they made of African civilization. Go look at the way they distorted books, distorted maps, distorted the whole reality to somehow keep us out of consciousness of remembering ourselves. Go look at today the curriculum. How we've come a long ways now. They've got Martin Luther King in the textbooks. They've got Rosa Parks in the textbooks. It used to be that the only story that was told about slavery was Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves.
Not so.
You couldn't find pictures, as you can now, on the internet, other places, of the thousands of lynchings that took place in every state in this union. I mean, they show you pictures of what the Germans did to the Jews, but they don't show you pictures of what Americans did to the Africans. They don't show you the castrated brothers hanging nude from trees all over America. They don't show you black women raped, killed, and hung next to her son. They don't show you the fact that what has happened to us biogenetically is a consequence of thousands of white men who raped black women over and over. The black women raised their children that even Thomas Jefferson didn't free from slavery. They don't tell you those things because there was an intentional effort to keep us dehumanized by not letting us remember. They kept us distracted and preoccupied by the most recent strategy to somehow drive us crazy. And we have become conditioned to reacting to their next move. Everything we do is a reaction to somebody else's agenda. You see, we should have had independent schools 100 years ago. You see, we shouldn't be arguing with these people about charter schools and arguing with these people about this. I mean, Marcus Messiah Garvey told us almost 70 years ago now, go back to your own homeland, build for yourself. Elijah Muhammad spent almost 50 years in America trying to get us to somehow do something for ourselves. I mean, what's so terrible about that? Oh, that man is anti-white, and he comes with that strange mystical philosophy, and all he is just anti-white, Look, fool, the call is for you to do for you what everybody in the world does for themselves. Don't you know that the Japanese are going to the universities and taking computer science and technology, but they take their children to community schools where they learn how to be Japanese? Yes. Don't you know that the Koreans, don't you know that all these other people, in fact, while engaging in getting the resources and skills that will help them advance themselves within the modern world, are spending time understanding their independent identity? Don't you understand that Jews have not stopped getting circumcised, and the Jewish girls have not stopped having their introduction to womanhood and introduction to manhood on the part of the bat mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs? That somehow those introductions into manhood and womanhood are not conducted by the former German leader, or somebody who used to be a Nazi. Those things are conducted by the elders of the Jewish faith who constantly keep alive the definition of who they are. And I ain't mad at them. I mean, why should, that's what dependable. That's what you ought to be doing, fool. Rather than expecting that somebody else is going to provide you. So, some ingenious people who are creative and conscious begin to put together independent schools. And it say this is an environment where your children can really learn. And you get excited. Oh, good. They're going to have a good school for my children. I'm so glad. You bring them 1 week, and then you don't pay tuition ever again. And you expect the school to stay in business. How the hell is it going to keep heat, lights on, doors open, walls open, without money? Well, you know, that's that whole capitalist state. I thought you were real Pan-Africans right on with the black diaspora. Don't you understand that we somehow liberated people and this is the process to liberate? Liberation takes resources, fool. You can't get liberated, brother. Now, I'm not saying that George Washington's picture on the dollar bill. I'm saying controlling resources. You can't get no chalk unless you got some resources. So if your child is not paying for the education, soon the school will be closed. We have to understand that we remember ourselves. We can remember Mary McLeod Bethune, starting a college cooking potato pies. Yes. You can remember the fact that people 2 generations ago who somehow had nothing like the resources we had. I mean, we throw away enough money in the mall on one weekend to set up an independent education. I mean, the brothers down in Miami got enough gold teeth to start an independent education in all of Miami. You understand? You all got enough CDs in your car, which have duplicates in your house. And if you just somehow took 1/2 of every CD cost, we could have an independent education. And the ones who got the CDs and the gold are the children of people who got even more. So we have got to stop complaining about what we don't have and use it for the constructive direction of our communities. Right. And that's the process. So we need to remember ourselves. And that's why we need Black history. You see, white people don't need no White History Month. They got White History Year. Everything in the curriculum is the history of white people. Every building on this campus, except maybe 1 or 2, named after white folks. Usually white men. And they got their big portraits painted up on the walls every place you go. Because they're celebrating where they came from. They're celebrating the memory. They're celebrating those things. And that whole celebration is what keeps alive the inspiration. I don't care how poor you are. When you see all these outstanding accomplishments of white people who look like you, then it doesn't matter that you came from Appalachia and came from an outdoor toilet. You are inspired because you can understand that I too can be like Thomas Jefferson. I too can be a George Bush one day. That somehow you are inspired by these celebrations of both not only where you came from, but who's in power today. And we submit to you that we must do that for our children. They need to know Ramesses. Yes. They need to know Imhotep. They need to know Queen Hatshepsut. They need to know Queen Invidia. They need to know the Ashantahini and the dynasties of the Akan people. They need to know the Yoruba concept of religion and the Orishas that conceptualized and preceded even the development of any concept of martyrs and angels in the whole Christian tradition. We need to understand the ideas that somehow have given birth to all the ideas we embrace today as having a foundation in people who look like you. Not to somehow make ourselves better, not to somehow deny the accomplishments of others, but to simply say, you are a part of this community of human development. You are contributors to civilization. And don't tell me what you can't do. Given what you have done, given what you have come through, given what you've endured, given that you've come off the plantation and are no crazier than you are. Do you realize people go through less trauma than that and they are crazy than hell? They go to school and shoot everybody. You know, you give them a gun and they go blow away, lose a job. The stress, oh my God, I've lost my job. What would happen to my family? So you go get a gun and come and shoot everybody in the factory or in the post office? Now, black people just started doing that recently because we watch white folks do it. But look, if we responded to stress like that, everybody would be dead. Right. You understand? Do you realize that we are absolutely an incredible It can knock you down. But you don't stay down. You don't stay down unless you choose to. We can show. You can abuse me. You can accuse me. You can call me all kinds of names. And then we have our young people now, they go to school. I don't think she likes black people, so I'm not going to study in that class. And who is that going to hurt? Do you realize they didn't even know our names until recently? And it's only when we insisted that the word was pronounced African American and not Negro or nigger. And that's why I can't understand why you like to use that word. That word did not come out of Niger. It didn't come out of Niger. It came out of a deliberate effort to degrade you into nothingness. And you hold up as a term of respect. It's utter disrespect of the people who died to get rid of that label of disrespect. Do you realize that people died because they didn't want to be called nigger? And you think it's nice to call each other nigger? And I let you know, I can understand how we take the English language, do the ebonics thing, reverse the meaning, and make the positive into something negative. That's cool. But you got to do that in the house. You understand? You don't get on national television and use that in front of people who don't know what you're talking about. They don't speak ebonics. They don't know how we do the language. And we do things to the language they wouldn't even recognize. In fact, we talk about their mamas and they think we're complimenting them. But you don't go tell people that. You keep it in the house. Otherwise, they're going to come to you and say, oh, niggers. Niggers in the house, in the house. Niggas who love the niggas on the niggas. And then you're going to get mad. Come here, guys. You know what I'm saying? And then you get mad. But you gave them an invitation. They saw you up there with your pants falling down. I'm the nigga, you the nigga, we the nigga. Either you out of your mind. And this is we got to celebrate ourselves. Celebrate ourselves. Yes, you have a right to this month of celebration. Yes, the Black Action Society has a right to have a week-long, month-long, year-long effort to celebrate who we are. Yes, we need these pictures all around the walls. Yes, we need that. That's asking no more of us than anybody else does. The only thing is that we have to use resources that are shared because they've taken control of all the resources. So they can have galleries and museums where they celebrate themselves. They can do that because we for so long haven't had access to those kinds of resources. As we begin to gain access to them, we should do that. Yes, we need to have Kwanzaa and many other similar times to celebrate us. No, Kwanzaa is not an African holiday. Yes, Maulana Karenga made up Kwanzaa. Good. That means he's got better sense than his granddaddy had. And that your granddaddies had. That somehow where you willingly celebrate other people's celebrations of themselves. I mean, like, let's be cool. Christmas ain't about no Jesus. Christmas is Xmas. It is the celebration of little white angels, white malls, white Christmas trees, white Santa Clauses is this. Even the elves are white. They ain't got no black dwarfs. Everything. The reindeer. I mean, everybody. The point of it is that they don't even have Christmas at a time when the ground is black. They have it when the ground is white. And Santa Claus goes flying over white things down in the roof. He doesn't even get black when he goes through the chimney. Now, if that's not a white celebration, you tell me what is. Now, I know what it's made, and I mean, even when they do the religious piece, what color is the baby Jesus? White. What color is the poor little mama in the manger? White. What color is the earthly dad? White. I mean, Even the angels coming out the sky, white. One brother came in from the east. And he's kind of ambiguous. And it was only after the 60s, those of you who are a little bit old about my age, understand that it was only after the 60s they began to depict even one of the wise men as black. While failing to acknowledge that if anybody wise came from the east, they all looked the same. Because it wasn't about the east, it was about coming from Africa into the place nearby. And to be able to celebrate who we are. Now the idea then is that these celebrations keep us understanding that it's all right to love us. It's really all right.
That's right.
I mean, it really is all right to love black women. They're not only the most beautiful women on the planet, they in fact stand undestructible spirit. You don't have to apologize to somebody for being with a black woman who looks black, feels black, and isn't trying to bleach, straighten, perm, detonate. That's all right. It's all right to be with a brother. Some of us are rotten. Some of us have turned into dogs. Some of us have taken on our slave status as studs and believe that that's the definition of manhood only because we're kind of crazy. But it's all right to love us anyway. Don't be self-destructive. And if the fool won't get straight, don't continue to hurt yourself. But the bottom line, understand it's all right. It's all right. And the bottom line is that we simply don't love ourselves enough.
That's right.
We are always finding ways to not love each other. Well, no, he's a cute, and I'm a captain, and I can't be hanging with you. My brothers are over here. All of us are your brothers.
That's right.
The fact that you put one Greek label on you as opposed to another doesn't destroy your true identity as an African human being who has the responsibility to this family first. So if you want to do your step show around a particular Greek label, do it. But please understand, that doesn't take you out of the family. That doesn't take you out of your responsibility for young black boys who are looking to you for an image of manhood in a society where there is no manhood represented what that looks like him. And therefore he ends up in the modern day plantations known as prisons. Because there are no images of successful manhood except the gangsters. Except the gangsters who somehow have either turned themselves into clowns or turned themselves into self-destruction because they don't know who they are. We have to love who we are. We have to love each other. I don't care if you're a Hebrew, a Rasta, whether you're Methodist, Pentecostal, Jehovah's Witness, and no religious system at all. I love you. You my brothers and you my sisters. I don't care what kind of Muslim you are. I still love you. I don't care what kind of Christian you are. I still love you. Yes, we've got misguided ideas. Some of us got good ideas, some of us got bad ideas. We need to try to still understand we're in a family. My children, nobody in the world can make me as mad as my children. But there's nobody in the world I love more than my children. Love them unconditionally. I can't even imagine not loving them. And that's how we have to begin to think of ourselves as a family. This is my sister. I don't care what she may do, even when she comes at me. I'm not masochistic, and I don't believe in crucifixion. And I will defend myself by whatever means necessary. So don't come at me to take me off the planet because I want to stay around. But even once I've defended myself, tied your hands up and got you out of the way from the harm, I love you. I love you. Now why is that so strange? I mean, we sang on and forgave white people.
That's right.
I mean, we watched them murder us, and we still forgave them.
That's right.
As a people, there was something in our spirit. It wasn't Christianity did that to us. There's something, because white folks were Christians, and they didn't forgive us. In fact, they didn't even feel guilty about what they were doing to us. So don't tell, well, it's the Lord in my heart that made the difference. No. It's your African heart that recognized the Lord in you that lets you understand that somehow you have the power to forgive. Now, you can call it whatever you want to, But please understand, why did it work just on us and it didn't work on them? They haven't even apologized yet. And so the idea is that we have to understand the importance of loving ourselves. The reason we are so incredibly self-destructive, the reason we can't support black businesses, the reason we don't stand behind black leadership, the reason why we have these deified notions that somehow we expect more of each other than we do of anybody else. The reason is somehow we are so willing to tear each other down and to listen to the worst and to be involved in the worst image of everybody is because we simply don't love ourselves to begin with. This process of what happened to us on the plantations wiped out our minds. And we've not overcome it yet. We are still engaged in self-mutilation, both personally as well as collectively. We cannot get anything moving in a way that begins to restore our power because of the fact that we are engaged in this whole process, self-hatred, that's so destructive to us. We will run to anybody who opposes us. At the C-SPAN symposium that some of you, I hope, saw. Yes. You know, one of the things that was so distressful for me was to hear the mouth of oppression coming through black people. You know, to hear these people defending policies that are guaranteed to destroy us. Now, fortunately, you know, that wasn't the majority of this thing. I mean, the kind of pathology that characterizes a Clarence Thomas is, for me, devastating. I mean, I can't believe anybody can be that crazy, can be so filled with self-hatred, and to let himself be used by acknowledged forces of evil to go and get his own people. That is utterly insane. That is the most destructive idea. And what we face in this 21st century is no longer the Klan coming. I'm not fearful of George W. Bush. He doesn't scare me anymore. What scares me are the black folks who work for it. Every one of them. I don't care what the purpose. And you see, it's not about him personally. It's what he symbolizes. It's what he represents. It's the people who supported him and the kind of interest they have. Now watch what will happen. It happened when Reagan came in. It is that the whole society will begin to feel off the leash and comfortable in being racist openly. It's going to come out the closet. Watch the newspaper. There are going to be editorials. Watch the magazine. Watch television. They're going to begin to present what's supposed to be a balanced story, but this presence of this mentality has let racism out of disguise again. See, while Clinton was in the White House, he was really like a real dressed up, hide this racism thing, while really doing not a great deal. But at least on the surface, having some of the makeup that made it kind of unfashionable to be overtly racist. But that's not the case anymore. The people who put this particular administration in the White House are people who are blatant, kill them, send them back to Africa, strangle them up, and wipe out everything black. I mean, Ashcroft openly hates black people. Hates them. And I don't care if Colin Powell is there, condemn him. Like say, he does not represent the interests of our people. Mr. Bush, I appreciate your appointment, and you have to do what you have to do, but I can't back it. I mean, I do that if you're a man, but if not, if you're going to quietly commiserate with these appointments of destructions and giving permission for racism to be rampant, then you are as much a racist as is anyone else. Simple as that. And this is the process that comes from self-definition. Okay, study ourselves, remember ourselves, celebrate and love ourselves. Last, and I'll finish, is serve ourselves. We must take on a vision and a commitment to self-determination. I mean, we must understand that what happens to the education of our children ultimately is in our hands. We can't wait for the government to do it right. And even if the same schools exist, you need to be there. Not only parents, but Penn students. You have proven that it don't make you a punk to be intelligent. Young brothers, that you can be successful and to somehow deal with the streets and deal with the struggles out there and create a life for yourself and still end up getting an education, getting an understanding, getting skills to put you in a position of self-determining power. So you need to be seen in the schools. They need to see somebody like you rather than the latest gangster, rather than the latest gang, rather than someone who's committed to self-destruction. They need to see you able to present and carry yourself as you choose to. If you want to wear your Polo and Timberland and all your other kinds of brand names, show them that you can do that without sacrificing your own life. That you don't have to kill to do it. You don't have to steal to do it. You don't have to rob to do it. You can choose a direction to get those things that are comfortable and enjoyable for yourself while simultaneously engaging in behaviors that build up our own communities. It's your responsibility. So if the alphas and the kappas and the Qs and the sigmas don't have a program that requires them to spend time working with the young boys that they have built into the destruction of their own organization, because there's no one coming behind you to figure it out. Sisters, if you don't show that you don't have to get pregnant at 2 years old in order to prove you're a woman, you don't have to back up that thing to prove your dignity and respectability. Show them that you can in fact be a dignified woman in control of your own lives without being a coochie mama. That somehow Foxy Brown or whoever her name is not the only alternative. Let them see you as an AKA. Let them see you as a Delta, not holier than thou with your nose up in the air, I'm better than you are, and I'm dignified and all this stuff. I don't mean that foolishness. I mean, let them see that you are a young sister like them, and you represent an alternative. So the AKAs and the Deltas and the Zetas and the Satas, you need to have an alternative image. And those of you who come from the religious communities, stop being holier than thou. All right, you got the answers. Share them with somebody else. Oh, you can't come, don't touch me. You're dirty. You're not holy enough. You don't see the true light. You don't know our true destiny. You look, fool. How are you going to learn it unless you come off your high horse and show it to me? I can't do that. I've seen the light. I've gone into the light and come back through the light, and the light was Africa. Well, that's cool. But if the light got you free, why are you still walking around into things, knocking into posts and falling down? Because you obviously can't see, fool. You see? So I'm saying that stop worrying about other people. I've not eaten any meat in almost 30 years. But I ain't gonna go in and insult nobody about you eat pork, so I can't shake your head. What does that mean? Tell me about that. Show me some place where you become so holy and so pure that you can, in fact, at least interact and try to teach by example people who somehow don't understand some things you understand. How easy it is for us to condemn folks who don't know yet. How did you get to know? Somebody had to show you, fool. You didn't have a revelation unless you got too high one night and found yourself someplace you weren't supposed to be. I'm a psychologist. My work is to tell you the truth about you. Now, I understand it makes you angry because I know you think you got the answers. And the craziest people are the ones who feel they are the sanest. That's a phenomenon, ain't that right, Doug? You go work with insane people, you can tell who's craziest by how sane they think they are. I'm telling you, the craziest patient in the hospital is the one who thinks he's the doctor. So be very careful of these people who got all the answers. That means they have no answers. And if you follow them, you will end up in a lower run of hell than they'll ever get to. You understand? So if they know, judge them by their ability to float. Now you understand, I see this sister down here, she said, I've never seen you in a suit before. That looks funny. And one of the reasons I started wearing suits, because people started thinking that I wasn't African-centered in my thinking unless I was dressed in an African costume. So I said, well, no, I don't want to communicate to you that my Africanity is in my wardrobe. I want you to understand my Africanity is in my head. And whatever I come dressed in, I'm still an African person. Now, trust me, I regardless. And I look good in them. My concern is that I get chilly when I come to this part of the country. And I don't have enough thermal underwear to put under my kente cloth. So when I'm in an environment where I'm in control of, I do that. But I also want you to understand that I can float.
That's right.
I can put on my Brooks Brother if I need Brooks Brothers. I can put on my polo if I need polo. I can put on my jeans if I need jeans. I can put on my African if I do that. And neither one of those shift the consciousness of who I am. And what we want you to understand is that we have a right to celebrate ourselves and celebrate our culture whenever we want to. But we also have the right to choose to somehow help ourselves understand that it's inside that counts. Inside. Suppose I could only be a true believer if I had dreadlocks. I'd be in trouble. In fact, I caught a little hell back in the 60s with afros. Because even though I had more hair than I have now, it wouldn't get too much higher. Now, who would do me there? I had a little mini, not in the 60s, a little later. I had a little mini afro. And I was depressed because it wouldn't get out there. Because the blacker you were, the bigger your afro was. The same way it is now. You know, the longer the locks you got now, and the more locks you can lock around the lock, you know, the more understanding into the conceptual understanding of you getting the kind of receptors that comes through the hair, like the brain, you know, the whole thing. And I'm depressed. I can't lock nothing. I can't even find nothing up there to cut, much less than lock. So the idea is that does not deny the meaning of that. Not only for the people who have it, but in terms of our whole holistic understanding. That we are whole in our spirituality. So our hair, our nails, our skin colorations, our dress, our movement, all of those things are reflective of a whole celebration of ourselves. And I just don't deny that. But let's not make that a criterion for whether you can be in the family or not. If you like bright and damn near white and you claim to be black and understand who you are, you belong to this family. If you jet black and keep your head and got all kinds of locks locked up to the lock, or if you bald head like me, you in the family. And we have to understand that we cannot buy into this externalized, westernized conception that what you see is what you get, because what you are is what you get. And ultimately we want to build a kind of knowledge and consciousness to change the mind, which in fact becomes synchronized with the spirit. And the manifestation of the African spirit is what we are trying to do to restore power to this planet, because it's the loss of the African spirit that has deprived the earth of the power of understanding the holistic interconnection between all things that are. And only when we restore awareness of who we are and where we came from can we help the world find its way again. Thank you for your patience.
We was enlightened by Dr. Akbar. How about giving him another round of applause? Thank you. Dr. Naeem he's agreed to have any questions or any answers. If you want to question him, you can do so. You can stay.
You'll stand over there? In a hurry? Hey, I'm off. In a hurry? I'm off. You want to go? I said I'm off. Oh, I don't go back to Tuesday night. Don't you make it back to Tuesday night? Hey, can I get a copy of that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna get I'm gonna get your number.
I need to talk to you anyway.
Okay. Yeah, how you doing, man? You know, that's right. I'm gonna get your number. Hold on, let me get up here.
Okay. Can you get anybody else how to get these on?
Okay, so literally just crazy.
You on over there?
Yes, I have a question. was wondering if you could comment on
make some copies?
African Americans being collectively used, not just the Clarence Thomases, but the African American middle class, which is really being used to shut out others. I was in California, not being from here, during the time at Caltech that Proposition 209 came into effect. So what is actually happening is you have a group of intellectual black people who are saying, I made it, and they're disjoint with the next generation and say, now you make it on your own. And they're shutting the younger generation out, but yet those are their children. Those are the same children who are not listening to Bob Marley as their reference, talking about revolutionary times, or James Brown saying, I'm black and proud. Instead, they're their grandchildren, whatever, who are listening to back that thing up. And there are those people who are educating themselves and who are educated and qualified, and they're shutting them out collectively with the Proposition 209, with the things going on in California, as sure as they are here in Pennsylvania. And I just wanted to know if you can expand on that, collectively being used.
Yeah, let's be very clear that we are all being used one way or the other. A part of what I'm trying to let us understand is that if we are not operating in our own behalf and out of our own mind, then someone else is operating through us. That's the whole point. One of the things we have to be very careful about is that we not use that kind of divisiveness to cut us away from each other. That's a part of the appeal that I'm making. Not only the older middle-class generation from the younger, but look at the kind of divisiveness that exists among the young people. You see, those who somehow see themselves as preppers versus those who see themselves sometimes as a hippo kind of group. That somehow they begin to build a divisiveness among them that's even more destructive. So I think that the appeal has to be is that all of us have to work on trying to love ourselves more. And let me show you, and let me tell you, give you another example. There's